All right. Did you come here for the nose? Then you've come to the right place. We are today going to talk about Nope, which is the third and most recent Jordan Peele movie, now available for rental in the privacy of your home. We'll also talk a little bit later about the latest iteration in the career of Britney Spears, which is sort of running on parallel tracks as this really punishing and painful reality television show and a musical career. We'll also talk about an attempt to kind of, a question about whether the series She-Hulk is being sabotaged by aggressive male online reviewers. All right, so that's quite a mouthful, all of that. Before I introduce the panel, let me just introduce you to the movie Nope. Let's hear a little clip. This is A1, Dylan. This is Daniel Kaluuya as O.J. Haywood, Keke Palmer as Emerald Haywood. They are brother and sister, and they provide both the dramatic thrust of this movie and also quite a bit of its comic relief as well. Here they go.
What's a bad miracle? You gotta work for that.
Nope.
They said it was a private plane or something that killed Pops. That ain't never made sense to me. And tonight I heard a ghost make a sound I ain't never heard a horse make.
What did you see?
It was big.
How big?
Big.
What did it look like?
I don't know. It was fast. Too fast. Too quiet to be a plane.
OJ, are you saying what I think you're saying?
And in fact, we know what it is. You don't know what it is if you haven't seen the movie yet. But when I say we, who do I mean? Raquel Benedict is the most dangerous woman in speculative fiction. She's the host of the Right Good, that's G-U-D, podcast. Tanisha Dugan is associate producer at Octopus Theatricals. Sean Murray is a stand-up comedian and writer and the host of the Nobody Asked Sean, S-H-A-W-N podcast. I have to spell everybody's podcast. Why do I feel that compulsion? Why do I have it? So Sean, maybe you can kind of get us going here. This is, as I said, the third Jordan Peele movie after Get Out and Us. It is, I think, fair to say something of a departure from the things that he's done previously without necessarily ditching those elements either. But say more about that.
Yeah, I think I think what this one is a deliberate effort on Jordan Peele's part to not make it like what he's called his other movies, like a social horror or social thriller. Like there's a lot of meat to it, but I think this one was his first attempt where he's like, I just want to be a great filmmaker. Like I want to make something big for theaters. That's a blockbuster that explores some deeper ideas, but does it in the most spectacular way possible. I think, like, as great as Get Out is, which is like one of the unassailable movies of the 2010s, I think it's his triumph of like really good storytelling and a great screenplay and great performances, but it's not like the most visually arresting movie that I've ever seen. And by design, I think with each outing, he's gotten stronger as a filmmaker and as a visual stylist. And I think like this movie is so audacious in terms like the third act of this movie is not at all what you would have ever expected from this movie, and it's like it's gorgeous and it's like you just don't see that from like mainstream filmmaking today.
Right. Kind of an interesting cast here, too. We mentioned the two leads, but there's also Stephen Yeun. You know him from Walking Dead, and Ren Schmidt. I have fallen in love with her from For All Mankind, and a young man named Brandon Perea, who is on the verge of stealing almost every scene that he's in. Apparently, Jordan Peele beefed up his part when he realized how good this guy was. So fun to watch. So yeah, Tanisha, I'm not even sure I know exactly what because you are an international woman of mystery, I don't entirely know what your thinking is about Nope, but I think I'm about to find out.
Well, it's let's just say I've learned that I've come to the point in my life where it takes me 3 shots to get through any movie. They are a lullaby for me, no matter how good or bad. So when I first got into this one, I was like, nope, this is not a movie for me. But when I finally was able to sort of like get through it top to bottom, I think I'm in agreement with Sean's assessment. It definitely feels like Jordan is working hard to not have a message in this movie, and yet the cloud hanging over my head, the omnipresent cloud in my life, feels like a heavy-handed symbol. But Daniel Kaluuya is always, interesting. Kiki Palmer is herself in whatever movie she does. It was good performances. I think the one place I would disagree with you, Sean, is I actually thought the cinematography on this was really interesting. Maybe it's the landscapes of Northern California that's got me excited, but there was something about seeing these Black actors, in this kind of Western sensibility, these wide open spaces, and them just sort of trekking the landscape, that felt really special and like something I hadn't seen a lot coming from those kinds of bodies.
Right. I mean, I think there's a couple of things that are kind of going on in the culture right now that are combined here, Tanisha. One of them is the kind of the sci-fi Western. We see it with Westworld. We see it. There's like, I know Amazon Prime has two. One's called Outer Range. Night Sky, I think, might be the other one. I can't keep them all straight. We're also starting to see a re-examination of and celebration of the Black Cowboy, the story of the Black Cowboy. We've done a lot of shows about this at this point, and there's a way in which this thing sets up from the very beginning. These two siblings are the son of a father who really, had played an instrumental role in supplying and training horses for Westerns, and their family lineage goes back essentially to the foundation of cinema. So there's kind of a sense of not only the Black Cowboy, but the Black Western, or the role of Black creators in making the Western genre what it is. So there's kind of a lot. This is all kind of on our plate in interesting ways right now, and it all kind of comes together under Jordan Peele's tutelage or wand or something. So Raquel Benedict, how about you? Where are you on? Well, I know where you are on. First of all, you saw it first in the theater, correct?
I did. I'm really glad I got to see it in the theater, because some of those shots of that like big space thing flying down when it's splayed across the big screen, it's really, really startling and astonishing. It's a gorgeous movie. I loved the night shots, just the way there's this subtle glow to everything. And just how big the sky is. I love this movie, if you can tell. When I walked out of the theater, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it, but I kept thinking about it for days and days and days after it, and wanting to talk about it with other people, which is usually how it goes when a movie becomes something I'm obsessed with. I definitely feel like Jordan Peele's almost like this generation's John Carpenter, and that he makes these movies that are obviously like accessible and really enjoyable to general audiences, but they're very smart, and there definitely is a political side to them, even if it's not necessarily like front and center. I think I know what you mean, in that this movie has a message, but it's not so much a message movie. It feels a little bit more organic to the characters, rather than the characters serving as mouthpieces of the message necessarily.
Right. And Sean, to her point, I feel like I made a mistake, which is I started watching this thinking I was going to watch another Jordan Peele movie, so to speak, and kind of psyched up about that and wanting to have the particular thrill of that combination of things. And then it wasn't like that at all. And I spent way too long trying to fit it into my preconception about what I was going to watch. I'm going to have to watch the movie again and kind of be open to what Peele is doing. But one name that keeps coming up, Sean, is Spielberg. And I think it's even come up with Peele. I think he said he started out with Close Encounters and then turned it into Jaws, something like that. But it's hard not to see Spielberg, just maybe in the way the movie's shot.
Absolutely. Like it's first, let me just clear up for Tanisha. I didn't mean that this movie is not visually interesting. I think this movie is gorgeous. I was saying like Get Out is not doesn't have the most amazing cinematography. But to this point about Spielberg, I mean, yeah, it's like, I think, one, if you're of a certain age as a filmmaker, you can't and you're making something big, you can't avoid referencing Spielberg. But I think like there's a deliberate, like there's so much Jaws and there's so much Close Encounters in this movie, and I think Spielberg sort of mastered like spectacle and fun and thrill all like in one. I think this movie does that so well. Like it, but I think the it's also like the Jaws and Jurassic Park thing of like holding back the sort of the obvious like thing at the center of the movie, like Jaws, like with the shark, or like you don't see the dinosaurs like in the park like right off the bat, and so then when you finally do see it, it's like it's so rewarding. And I think going back to what I was saying about the third act, like when you finally see what like they've been chasing after, or it's been chasing after them in a lot of ways, it's like what is like you've never seen anything like that in a like on a big screen.
Right. I want to play another clip here. This is, once again, the two leads, Keke Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya as the Haywood siblings. And maybe I'll just set up this clip or why I think it's interesting, because there's a third part of this that I don't think we have. Well, it may be maybe 3, 4, and 5 different parts worth discussing. But a third part of this is it's also kind of a movie about IP, right? There's a way in which it's a movie about the movie business and about intellectual property and about getting a certain kind of shot. I would simply say that without spoiling anything, I hope in Jaws, they're not trying to get pictures of things. Here, they're trying to get pictures of things. All right, here are the two leads.
You know I ain't trying to run it up. I just was looking online, and I seen a lot of
You know I'm broke, right?
Well, use my money. Nigga, shut up. Look. All right. There it is. 5 to 100K.
Oh, read it.
You read it, dyslexic ass. The point is, a website like Cyber Dominion will pay 5 to 100K for photographic evidence of UFOs.
100K?
And that's just what I saw on the first go. Now that I'm thinking about it, Cyber Dominion, that right here is a moment, our moment. We set it up, release it the right way. Man, I'm talking rich and famous for life.
How?
How what? How we put it out? And that's what I'm saying. We don't just go for the quick cash in, okay? We go to the most credible platform to do the story.
What's that, like Oprah?
Yeah, like Oprah, for example. After that, everybody want in.
Well, I'm saying there's plenty of videos of flying online. I saw one the other day that wasn't on Oprah.
Like, all I'm saying is all that online is fake, low quality. Ain't nobody gonna get what we gonna get.
What we gonna get?
The shot.
What shot?
The shot. The money shot. Undeniable, singular, the Oprah shot.
The Oprah shot?
All right, so Tanisha says, and we have to be careful about spoilers here, but that's a very funny conversation they're having. But it is another part of this movie, right? And the movie kind of begins with them trying to do their usual Hollywood work and kind of getting kicked off a project because somebody else did something stupid. But I think a lot of this movie is maybe Jordan Peele also having a little bit of a chance to reflect on his first few experiences with Hollywood, with getting the right shot, with selling the intellectual property the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably true, and maybe I'm small, but for me, I see it more about like this idea of us needing to capture something in order for it to be relevant or real, and so it's like the meta. It's maybe less meta than Jordan, and more very specific to the way I watch us all sort of participate in life, which is like, if it didn't, I can feel like I'm stealing this from some TikTok kid, but like if I didn't TikTok it or Instagram it, it didn't happen. And so, yes, it's about the money for them, right? Capturing this, thing that's happened, this thing that's happening in their life. But it's also like the spectacle isn't real unless it's recorded, which feels very, I don't know, real to me as a way in which we sort of go through life at this particular point. And I think, as it relates to Jordan, Jordan Peele, I think that like he hasn't lost yet. I think I emailed Jonathan as soon as this movie came out because I was looking at reviews and I was like, can't miss this one. And so I don't know if I could get into the psychology of how he is thinking about his past movies, because I don't know if he's missed yet, which has got to be a tremendous pressure when you're trying to create.
It's a really good point. I hadn't really thought that much about that part of it. But you're right. He doesn't know yet what it's like to crash and burn. And maybe he won't ever. Who knows? Raquel, there's something we haven't talked about, which is there's sort of a parallel plot line. And I think I can say a little bit about it without spoiling anything. And it's that one of the characters had been a child actor, had appeared in a running TV show in which a chimp was a featured player. And there was, and this I think is revealed early enough in the movie, so it's not, there was kind of a horrible Charlene Nash type incident where the chimp ran amok and either injured or killed a lot of people. And I'm still not quite sure that I understand why it's running alongside. I mean, I see the parallelism, but could you say a little bit, since you watched it in theater and you've been thinking about it ever since, what are you thinking about that part of it?
Yeah, I think that part of it's not necessarily important for the plot element. Like, it does reveal the motivation of this one particular character, this former child actor, and it sort of shows why he does the thing that he does. But I think it's more about drawing a parallel in terms of themes, in terms of the way animals and child actors are exploited by the industry. I mean, he was a child actor, and this chimp was an animal actor, and these are creatures or beings that really shouldn't be there. Like, it's not good for you to be in front of a camera like that. And I think it speaks to this larger idea and discussion throughout the film of how the spectacle kind of sucks people up and grinds them up and sort of spits them out in order to keep going and in order to feed itself. Because not only does this thing happen to him, the event becomes fodder for a lot of jokes, for a lot of discourse, and like his career as an adult is capitalizing on this horrific trauma, which is really, really sad and really disturbing. I mean, he's kind of selling like memorabilia based on this time that a horrible thing happened to him.
Right.
It's interesting. I also wonder if the sort of device of the child star and the show also gives Jordan a place to play with some of this imagery. I mean, there's an unmistakable E.T. reference, right? Baked into one of those moments. And it also is like the way in which we get the most horror specific acts, because without, I think, that parallel track, it feels like a sci-fi movie, but less like a horror. And so I do wonder, for me, if the device of the child star and the show and the chimp gives Jordan sort of breath to sort of play in another genres and to really, ode and love on the directors and the movies that he spoke about, being his inspiration for this.
Right.
So, and I got,
go ahead. Go ahead, Sean.
No, I was going to say, to Raquel's point, I think there is also, like, I think the child star, Steven Yeun's character, I think the parallel extends into it being about when he was a child, he experienced people trying to control nature and then seeing nature sort of like respond negatively to that. And then he grows up and doesn't learn that lesson. So without spoiling the end, like the third act of the movie, but like there are consequences to him he sort of tried to do the same thing, and he deals with the consequences of that. You know what I mean? Like trying to control, like something that shouldn't be controlled.
Right. Well, I feel like I have to tiptoe into this, but I'm glad you're saying this, because one of the thoughts that I've been having is, well, actually, I was thinking back to remember when either Siegfried or Roy was attacked by their tiger, and Chris Rock had a whole thing about this where he said people said the tiger went crazy, and he said that tiger didn't go crazy, that tiger went tiger. He goes, tiger was crazy when he was riding around on a little bicycle with a German army helmet on. That was crazy. But there's a sense in which the chimp goes chimp, and there's a sense also in which the other presence that's in this movie that we can't really say too much about is what it is, and maybe is never dealt with on that basis. It is what it is. It isn't. There isn't necessarily evil incarnate up in the skies. There's just something up there that's doing what it does. And Sean, I'm kind of wondering whether that's another part of the message here, which is if all you can think of is I got to get a really great picture of this thing, you might miss the point of the thing.
Absolutely. And I think like you said, like I was going to reference that same Chris Rock joke. Like that's just the nature of that thing. Like the chimp didn't do anything wrong necessarily, except for the fact that they shouldn't have been in that environment in the first place. And for the as you put it, the presence that exists in this film, it's you never get a chance to understand it, right? So like, is it malevolent or is it just doing what it does? And I think it's an interesting thing because like they never their first thought. And this goes back to Tanisha's point earlier about like our desire, like if you got to capture something or it didn't happen. It's like I think it's a comment on like how we live in society now, where it's like it's not. They never even try to understand it or try to get like they don't even think about their own safety. The first thing they think of is like we can make money off of this. You know what I mean? They never try to even like explore like what this means for their world. Their first thought is, oh, this is happening. We could probably like profit off of this. And I think that's sort of like one of the larger points of the movie.
Tanisha, I would say this is the funniest of the Jordan Peele movies. Would you agree with that? I mean, I think, you were saying before that you kind of need the chimp story to get the horror. And I totally agree with that. I mean, the chimp was when I was afraid. I wasn't really afraid much of the rest of the time. But part of it was the other two movies are funny, but this, like, you're laughing a lot of the time in this movie.
You are. And, Jordan talks, I think there was an interview when someone said, oh, did Keke Palmer have to audition? And he was like, Keke Palmer doesn't audition. And I think that, choice of Keke is what makes it funny. I remember, you guys were talking in the threads and you're saying, there's not a lot of dialogue here. And I think, Daniel's character, this anti-hero, doesn't speak much, but Keke is sort of all over the place. And she really does serve as this comic relief. But it's also, to me, it's like that beautiful dance of siblings, right? You've got this quiet one, you've got this audacious, loud, hilarious one. And I'm not sure it would be quite a humorous movie if it weren't for that actress, quite frankly.
Yeah, but also they're so interestingly matched too. I think Kaluuya is one of the really great face actors of his generation. He can say an awful lot with a look or with those. There's a couple of really deep night shots where suddenly you just see his eyes, but they're not just eyes. The expression in those eyes is saying a lot.
That moment he's recalling his dad, and I turned to the person I was watching the movie with, and I was like, that is some like serious acting. I was like, human beings don't want to cry. And you can see all of this emotion working on this man's face as he's recalling, his dad and what he feels he needs to do for his dad. Daniel, I mean, I use anti-hero truly because, the wrangler in him that fails in the beginning becomes, the one who understands all the points you guys brought up, right? He's like, this animal needs to be worked with. I need to understand. I think he has a whole monologue with Angel and his sister about how to tame an animal. You're right, Colin. They are a really stunning matchup because of their differences in the way that they approach the work.
All right, I see you by the clock on the clubhouse wall. We've got to go to a break here. When we come back, we will attempt to make sense of the life and times of Britney Spears.
One-eyed, one-horn, flying purple people eater. A one-eyed, one-horn, flying purple people eater sure looks strange to me. One-eyed really came down to earth and he lit in the tree. I said, Mr. Purple People Eater, don't eat me. I heard him say in a voice so gruff,
I wouldn't eat you 'cause you're so tough.
it was a one-eyed, one-horn, flying purple people eater. One-eyed, one-horn, flying purple people eater.
Running fast along the side.
I feel as though you could have spent a good portion of your life in the last few years following the extended story, documentary coverage, etc., of Britney Spears and the pretty clearly exploitive conservatorship initiated by her father. That seems to be closing as a chapter in her life, and she has in fact released a brand new single. You're hearing it right now. If it sounds oddly familiar, first of all, she recorded it with Sir Elton John, and it is sort of a mashup of 3 of his musical themes, most notably, of course, the chorus of Tiny Dancer. Meanwhile, while that's happening, she is in fact also speaking out about the conservatorship in a 22-minute audio recording explaining what happened to her. I found actually that I had more thoughts about Britney Spears than I would have guessed. But Raquel Benedict, maybe you can get us going here. Let me just remind people today on the show, Raquel Benedict, Tanisha Dugan, and Sean Murray are the nose. So Raquel, I don't know. I don't even know how to start the conversation exactly. So I'm just going to let you say whatever you want to say about Britney Spears.
Oh my goodness. I mean, yeah, I feel like this topic ties really, really well to the movie Nope. There's this fun parallel between it. I mean, the movie Nope starts with this quotation: "I will cast abominable filth upon you, make you vile, and make you a spectacle." And I feel like that kind of is the Britney Spears story a little bit. Like, it's really hard to fully grasp just how much performing since the age of 10 for audiences would warp your brain and warp your sense of self. We're talking about an entertainment industry that chews up and damages full-grown adults, and she went into this as like a 10-year-old. And it's wild. And I mean, the song itself isn't really anything special. It's sort of a rehash of older Elton John stuff, which he's in his 70s, so I can't really expect too much from him, but
careful now. I'm 67 years old.
I mean, live your best life. Just chill out in your pajamas, release in a song with very low effort and make absurd amounts of money off of it. That's living the dream.
Yes, I don't know whether we're talking about Elton John or Britney Spears there, but I guess either way, it kind of works. Yeah, so I don't know, Tanisha, let's sort of carry this thing forward. I mean, I think Raquel's parallelism is kind of interesting. I mean, both of these are stories that include quite a bit of exploitation, and maybe that's a big part of it. And I'm sort of the wrong age to have opinions about Britney Spears anyway, but you're a much younger person. How does this all land with you?
You're right. She fits right into, my demographic. I watched Kids Incorporated, which if you're of a certain age, this show. And she was on it along with, no, I'm mixing up Kids Incorporated with Mickey Mouse Club. Okay, I'm totally of a certain generation. Mickey Mouse Club,
Understandable, right? Understandable.
So, it's her and it's Justin Timberlake and it's Christina Aguilera and it's the one who's about to be in the Barbie movie. I mean, they are a part of a class, a cohort of stars. And I think we forget how much machinery is a part of that, both the art making, if you want to call it art, or pop art making, and the lifestyle. And I think what's really interesting to watch Britney now, after the conservatorship and making music, if, to take Raquel's point, this very sort of lazy attempt to get back out there. To me, it shows me that like these creatures need support, that these are collective efforts, that you don't get out here alone, and that there's this tension between her wanting to do this thing, her life being the thing on her own, and a very clear sense that like art on the level that she was once making doesn't happen as a solo, even if that is the story we tell about American individualism and exceptionalism, is that it's this one genius that moves the ball forward. We know, those of us who do this work know that that's not true. And I feel like she's stuck in this space of the fantasy of what she thinks we all want from her and the reality. And it is a spectacle to watch. I mean, anybody who follows her on Instagram knows you can see her half naked. You could see her ramblings. You can see her completely cogent and coherent, and sort of walking us through the past 13 years of her life. It is definitely, to me, a piggyback off of Nope because of the way in which the industry kind of creates these spectacles for us to chew on.
Right. Okay, you were
absolutely see Britney Spears wearing that red cowboy outfit playing Stephen Yeun's character. She would kill it. She'd be so good.
Yes, Tish, you were way more prepared for that discussion than I had realized, so that was very impressive.
I mean, she is. I mean, I grew up with her. You know, like
I get it. I hear it now. Yes, it's I'm totally with you. So, Sean, let me just beat this whole analogy to death here, and then we can move on. So, in Nope, one of the interesting little aspects of Nope, framing aspects of Nope, is that there are segments of the movie, and each one begins with the name of an animal. I think that's true all the way through. I don't think there are any exceptions made to that. And so which raises the question, well, whose story is being told, and how is the story being told, and is it being told maybe from an animal's point of view a little bit more? And
yes, Mr. McEnroe, yes.
And so there's a way in which I wonder if Britney Spears will ever get to really tell her real story. Every refraction of her story is really more about something that somebody else did to her, or now her kids wouldn't go to her wedding to the new guy, and there's just like, but you sort of don't feel this is really her story. It's the story of all of this stuff, you know, back to Raquel's Bible quote, all this filth that's just been ladled onto her her entire life.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess that is her story, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Like, if that's all she's ever really experienced was like this filth being like thrown at her and thrown on her, like it's very unfortunate. I don't know how to feel about really, like, I wish her the best, you know, like I want the song. I wish the song was good. Like, I mean, it's not a bad. I mean, Tiny Dancer's great, so like that part's great. But it's like, you hear how much higher Elton John's voice is in the mix than hers, because like she's never been known for being the best musician. I don't know. It's a shame because like her moment has passed. And I think for a stronger like musician, perhaps she would be able to regain that moment to some extent, because like I think she got a ton of support and attention when like the news about her conservatorship sort of broke to the public. Like, we're like, oh wow, like we didn't know this was happening to her. But it's like, let's just imagine, and this is not any way to compare Britney Spears to Beyonce, because Beyonce fans will.
I was gonna go there, Sean.
Destroy me, but
like, you know, we all 40.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
But if this had happened to Beyonce, like Beyonce would be probably back at the level that Beyonce's at now, because she's Beyonce. You know, like I feel like when you're a child star, like they're tapping into something that like you have as a kid that you may not carry into adulthood. And very few actually do. You know what I mean? Shout out to Leonardo DiCaprio. But like, I don't know. And I'm going to try to make some joke about Leonardo DiCaprio he would have stopped dating Britney Spears about 15 years ago because now she's not. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
That's how he stays relevant, by like dating the young ones and like vampirically sucking the relevance out of them.
Yeah, maybe that's what Britney needs to do. She needs to like date Dua Lipa or something, and like, you know, steal some of her juice,
or have the kind of infrastructure that Ms. Knowles Carter had. You know, like
that's true.
It is Beyonce, Serena, you know, these folks who were stars as kids and turned that stardom into like something lasting for them as adults. They are rare, right? More often we hear about the screeches, you know, the ones who are sadly no longer with us. I think there's a track that you can follow that can be like a Beyonce. The unfortunate part is that, you know, Britney isn't on that track either in life or in music, because Renaissance came out at the same time that this song came out, and we having different stories.
Right. I do want to, as the panel knows, I want to do a hoist a flag in support of Elton John, whose music I stopped listening to a really long time ago. I mean, he's not musically interesting to me anymore. But he has kind of, I think, emerged as something of a mensch. And yeah, Raquel's right. There's going to be checks coming in. But I'm not sure he needs those checks all that badly. It strikes me lately that this is something kind of nice that he did, that he said he was aware of this whole story. And, he didn't need to do this. I think he did it probably out of some kind of kindness. I was watching a Brian Wilson documentary, another person broken by an exploitive father and other problems, and was touched by the number of times Elton John came on and said kind of the right thing about that. I think his Lockdown Sessions album also reflected kind of a real grown-up response to the pandemic, which not every rock star of his generation was capable of making. So I feel like, I want to believe in somebody anyway. I think Elton is emerging as kind of nice here. Now, we're a little bit pressed for time, but I also do feel, Raquel, like there's some kind of jump we can make from Britney Spears to She-Hulk. We're going to do a whole She-Hulk episode of The Nose later on, and probably some of these panelists will be back on it for that. But there was this idea that through online reviews, sort of nasty Gamergate kind of guys were doing their best to undermine She-Hulk. It is sort of where the aesthetic is gone. Megan Thee Stallion is now appearing on it. Tatiana Maslany, who's this fantastic multi-personality actor, has the lead role. But there was a sense, guys just don't want that to be very successful. I don't know. And a video to that extent was made by the Washington Post. What were your thoughts?
I mean, there's definitely going to be like weird conservative, like anti, misogynist trolls online, but I feel like the way that they're emphasized, it feels like it's kind of cynically trying to divert attention away from an actually really thoughtful and serious conversation that people are having about the way that companies like Marvel really poorly treat VFX artists. So famously, a lot of VFX artists have come out to talk about how the company like overworks, underpays people to the point where it's not really possible for them to do good work that looks good. And framing it as a feminist show too kind of bugs me, because one VFX artist who works for the company who put the show together said that they had executive meddling preventing the artists from making She-Hulk really big. These executives kept telling them to make the character design like smaller and thinner and more feminine to appeal to the male gaze. So if we're going to talk about feminism, it feels a little cynical to say like, oh, these bros don't like it because they're misogynists, when a certain degree, I think, of misogyny already went into the design of the show, of like not making her too quote unquote bulky or too muscular.
So hold me closer, tiny Hulk. No. We want a big Hulk. I've seen that the through line between these two segments is never trust a guy whose first name is Kevin and second name begins with F. All right. So Tanisha, I know you're all the way through on She-Hulk, right? You're with the series already.
She-Hulk. I am. And I don't know if I want to say fan, but it's something that I watch with my kids. We sort of dig it together. I think you're so spot on, Raquel. I mean, I cringed in the first episodes when, she's talking about how she handles her emotions. And it is so within the binary, the conversation that they're having. And so, I mean, I do find it fascinating that men are sort of harping on this show, because I think it was absolutely built with men in mind. And, that to me is more like a continued reminder that we should make things for the people they're meant for, and that in the specificity will come universality. But I also will put in a good review for it. One good review. Hopefully there are more. Because I think it's nice to have a girl superhero. And it's nice to have a girl superhero who can get the best of the boys sometimes. And, there's an opportunity for these stories to live outside of the binary. And I think what you're talking about, Raquel, of the artist inside of it being able to do that work so that it comes to fruition is so necessary. I just don't know if a ship like Marvel can get there.
All right. So we have just one little chance for Sean. Although, Sean, I do want to say that they already did this with Hawkeye, and I loved it. And they turned Hawkeye into a young woman, and that young woman whose name I'm blocking right now is terrific.
Kate Bush.
Yeah. No, it's not Kate Bush.
No, it's Kate Bishop.
No, it's not. It's what's her name? She was in True Grit and all that kind of stuff.
No, the character is Kate Bishop.
Oh, yeah.
Actress is Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah, she's terrific, and she's like a lot more. She's a lot more interesting than Jeremy Renner. Let's be honest about that. And there's a way in which these are really interesting things to watch. But we're not here to evaluate that. I don't know. What was your sort of take, though, Sean, on the whole idea that maybe guys just want to be toxic about this, to use a Britney Spears term?
I think there's absolutely the truth to that. I think that happens. I was referencing earlier in our email chain about like Ghostbusters in 2016. It got a lot of like hateful male reviews, which detracted from the fact that the movie was just bad on its own right, but there was a lot of misogynist like attacks on that movie, which sort of doesn't allow for like the legit review. Like it's hard to say like I didn't like Ghostbusters at all, but I don't want to say I didn't like Ghostbusters because I don't want to be lumped in with the people who didn't like Ghostbusters 2016 because they starred a bunch of women. So I think I do agree with that with Raquel that Marvel is trying to benefit from that by saying like keying in on that to hide like what their real issues are. But I think the solution to all this is that Britney Spears should get some Hulk blood in her and become our own She-Hulk, and then she'll probably solve all her problems that way.
Oh, I'm sure there's a Marvel moment coming out there. All right, we got to go to a break, so we'll have time to make some recommendations. All right, in the technical producers booth right now, we've got Dylan Reyes and Kat Pastor. And thanks to both of them. Thanks to Jonathan McPants for producing this and pretty much all news episodes. Now time to make some recommendations. Raquel Benedict, why don't you get us going?
I will start by recommending a horror movie that just dropped on HBO Max. It's called We're All Going to the World's Fair. And it's about an alienated young person who's playing some sort of strange internet alternate reality game that may or may not cause weird changes in the person playing them. But it's a really good movie that captures the very strange loneliness of being way, way too online. It's quite good.
Oh, great. All right, Tanisha Dugan, what have you got for us today?
I got two. My first one is a book called Black Boy Joy by Kwame Mbalia. It's a series of like short stories. I've been reading them with my son London. They're fantastic. Highly recommend. And also for your TV watching, I'm recommending A League of Our Own. They do some really lovely like callbacks to the movie as a person who liked the movie, but takes it in a wholly new queer direction, which is fantastic.
All right, so that's on Amazon Prime, I believe, these days. The repurposed.
Oh yeah, good call.
A League of Our Own. All right, and you guys are going very briskly through this, but that's okay. So I have a little musical thing at the end anyway. That'll be nice. But so Sean, what are you going to recommend?
I would like to recommend He-Hulk, the male Hulk. No, I'm just kidding. I would like to recommend the music from the movie Nope by Michael Abels, the original motion picture soundtrack for that movie is tremendous, great score. And my other recommendation is I just watched, or on the Criterion channel. Was it on the channel or the collection? Did I buy the DVD? I can't remember. But The Friends of Eddie Coyle, 1973 film starring Robert Mitchum. It's one of those movies where it's like, oh, there were so many great movies in the 70s that you just completely, no one ever talks about this, but it's like one of the best movies I've ever seen. So I don't know, check that out if you like old crime movies.
All right, so
let's pause real quick, Colin, and just shout out Jordan Peele's ability to take pop music and embed them into his movies in the most clever ways. I mean, stunning, Sean. I love the recommendation.
Yeah, great recommendations all around. So one thing that I'm going to recommend from Nope, or connected to Nope, is so one of the things that becomes kind of a plot device in Nope in a way that I could almost not explain to you are what are called sometimes sky dancers. These are the inflatable men who are outside auto dealerships and stuff like that. So I'm going to recommend from the podcast 99% Invisible, that's Roman Mars's massive engine of looking at design and stuff like that. There actually is, from 2014, an episode called Inflatable Men about where these things came from, who actually invented them. I will give you one thing. The man who invented them, he doesn't call them any of those things. He calls them tall boys. But anyway, it's just a terrific look at that. And actually, it's actually a story of exploitation to a certain degree. The guy who kind of figured out how to make them work, I think, didn't get any of the money for them at all. All right. So the other thing that I want to mention is that Maureen McGovern has announced over the past week that due to early stage dementia, she cannot tour anymore. She can't even drive a car anymore. Maureen McGovern, although she's kind of associated to a certain degree with slightly schlocky movie themes, is an amazing pure singer. And some people know that I had this disastrous experience with her where I attempted to sing with her on stage, having forgotten that she has a 6-octave range. But she was a great sport about it. She was partly her idea anyway. But I mean, it's such a sad thing. She's an amazing talent, particularly when she focuses kind of on the American songbook, the jazz standards. So we're just going to end today with a little bit of that remarkable voice, Maureen McGovern.
Somebody loves me. I wonder who. I wonder who he can be. Somebody loves me. I wish I knew. Can he be? Worries me. For every boy who passes me, I shout, hey baby, you were meant to be my loving baby. Somebody loves me. I wonder who.
So thanks very much to our panel this week. First of all, Maureen McGovern, let's hope that voice is not entirely stilled by her current problems. But meanwhile, thanks to Raquel Benedict, the most dangerous woman in speculative fiction, host of the Right Good podcast, Tanisha Dugan, associate producer at Octopus Theatrical, Sean Murray, stand-up comedian and writer and the host of the Nobody Asked Sean podcast. Thanks to all of you for listening. We will be back. We're off for Labor Day. We'll be back on Tuesday with an all calls show, an Ask or Tell Me Anything show, and then a week of other excitements that I forget what they actually are.